My brother and my neighbor thought they could steal my house. Not break into it, steal it. Forge documents, fake my signature, list it for sale behind my back, and split $500,000 while I was none the wiser. They almost pulled it off. I caught them 3 days before closing. Most people would have called the cops immediately, screamed, made a scene.
I didn't. I let them think they'd won. Then, I destroyed them both so completely that one's in prison and the other lost everything he owned. This is how I did it. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Stories like this take hours to create, and your support helps the channel grow. I inherited the house from my grandmother 2 years ago. Small colonial in a neighborhood that had gentrified hard. Property values tripled in 5 years. She left it to me, not my brother Derek. He'd always been the golden child, but toward the end, she saw through him. He smiled at her funeral. I noticed. My neighbor Carl lived next door. Pushy guy, always asking about my plans for the place, whether I'd ever sell, what I thought it was worth. I brushed it off as nosy small talk. Then the questions got weird. Carl started asking about the property line, wanted to know if I had the original deed, if there were any easements, whether I'd updated the title recently. I didn't think much of it. He was always starting projects, always had some scheme. But one evening, I saw him and Derek talking in Carl's backyard, close, heads together. They went silent the second they saw me at the window. Derek waved, big fake grin. My stomach tightened. A week later, Derek asked if he could borrow my mail key. Said he wanted to grab something I'd accidentally had shipped to my address. I said no. He got defensive. Too defensive. Started saying I didn't trust him, that I always treated him like a screw-up, that Grandma had poisoned me against him. I told him to leave. He did, but his car stayed parked on Carl's street for another 2 hours. I watched from the upstairs window. Something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong yet. I started checking my mail obsessively. Nothing unusual. Then I logged into my county property records portal on a hunch. My hands went cold. There was a new document filed under my address, a quitclaim deed, dated 3 weeks ago, signed by me. Except I'd never signed anything. I downloaded it. The signature looked close. Too close. Someone had practiced. I felt cold, visceral sickness wash over me. Someone was trying to steal my house. I called the county recorder's office. They confirmed the deed had been notarized and filed. I asked for the notary's information. It was a mobile notary based 2 towns over. I called him. He remembered the appointment. Said a man matching Derek's description brought the paperwork, along with a woman who claimed to be me. She had my ID, a fake. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. My brother had forged my identity and filed a fraudulent deed. Then I found the listing. Zillow. My house. Posted by a discount brokerage I'd never heard of. Pictures taken from the inside. My furniture. My grandmother's paintings. The description called it an estate sale and noted the seller was motivated. Asking price? $475,000. I'd bought groceries in that kitchen that morning. They were selling my home out from under me while I was still living in it. And they'd already scheduled showings. If your own family betrayed you like this, what would you do? Comment your answer below. I didn't confront them. I called a real estate attorney who specialized in fraud. She told me this was more common than people think. Family members forge deeds, sell properties, disappear with the cash. She advised me to file a police report immediately and contact the title company. I did both, but I also did something else. I decided to let them think they were winning. I wanted to watch them hang themselves.
Derek called me that afternoon. Casual. Asked if I wanted to take a weekend trip with him. Said he'd pay. Some cabin upstate. I knew why. They needed me gone during the final showing and inspection. I told him I'd think about it. He pushed. Hard. Said it would be good for us to reconnect. That we drifted apart since Grandma died. I agreed. He exhaled. Relief. I could hear it through the phone. He thought he'd won.
The next day, Carl knocked on my door. Said he had a friend who was a home inspector and wanted to practice on my house for free. Would I mind? I smiled, said sure. The inspector showed up an hour later. Clipboard, camera, took photos of everything. I followed him, asked questions. He got nervous, started sweating. I asked him who hired him. He stammered, said Carl set it up. I thanked him and watched him leave. Carl was watching from his porch. I waved. He didn't wave back.
I contacted the buyers they'd lined up, a young couple. I pretended to be a concerned neighbor and warned them the sale might be fraudulent. They freaked out and called their agent. The agent called the brokerage. The brokerage called Derek. He called me, voice tight, asking if I'd said anything to anyone about the house. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. He hung up. The rage in his silence was delicious. The trap was closing.
The closing was scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. I told Derek I'd leave for the cabin Thursday night. I didn't. I called the detective handling my case, told him I had evidence and a plan. He loved it. We coordinated with the title company and the buyer's agent. Everyone agreed to play along. Friday morning, I watched Derek and Carl pull into the title company parking lot. They were laughing. I was already inside, waiting.
They walked into the conference room, saw me sitting at the table. Derek's face drained. Carl froze. The title officer stood. So did the two detectives behind me. I watched my brother's legs almost give out. The lead detective introduced himself, explained that they were both under arrest for real estate fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Carl started shouting, said it was all Derek's idea. Derek said nothing, just stared at me. I stared back.
The buyers walked in 30 seconds later, confused, angry. Their agent had told them the seller would be there. They saw the cops, saw Derek in cuffs. The husband asked what the hell was going on. I explained calmly that these two men had tried to sell him a house they didn't own. The wife started crying. They'd already put down earnest money. I told them I'd work with their attorney to make sure they got every penny back. They left. Carl was still screaming.
Derek finally spoke, asked me how I found out. I told him about the county portal, about the notary, about the listing, about the inspector. His face twisted. He called me a vindictive bitch. Said Grandma had turned me into this. I leaned in close, told him she'd left me the house because she knew exactly who he was. A liar, a thief, a coward.
Then I walked out. I never saw him outside a courtroom again.
Derek pled guilty, got 3 years. Carl went to trial and lost. 5 years plus restitution he'll never be able to pay. He had to sell his house to cover legal fees. I bought it at auction for 1/3 of market value. Tore down the fence between our properties. Expanded my garden. Sometimes I sit on my porch and look at the space where his house used to be. The county cleared the fraudulent deed. My title is spotless.
I still live in my grandmother's house. My house. And every time I lock the door at night, I think about my brother sitting in a cell, knowing he destroyed his life trying to steal mine. Best investment I ever made was patience. Subscribe for more emotional stories that prove betrayal often comes from the people closest to you.